The Alpha King was dying, and Remy could smell it from 3 floors away. Blood. Silver. Something burning that shouldn't burn. Remy's mop clattered to the hospital floor as the scent hit, not like normal smells hit regular people, but like a freight train made of fire and glass. Their knees buckled. The mutation that made them a freak among Omegas, the genetic curse that turned their senses into torture devices, flared like someone had thrown gasoline on their nerves. Not now, Remy whispered, pressing their back against the cold tile wall. Please, not now. But it was already too late. The scent was inside them now, crawling through their blood, telling them stories they didn't want to hear. Wolfsbane. Silver nitrate. And underneath it all, something ancient and wrong, something that whispered poison in a language older than words. And then, God help them, him. Darius Thornclaw's scent cut through everything else like a knife through silk. Thunderstorms. Whiskey. Power so raw it had a taste. Darkness that felt like falling and flying at the same time. It slammed into Remy's Omega biology like a fist, and their body responded before their brain could scream at it to stop. Mine. No, Remy gasped aloud. No, no, no. Not him. Anyone but him. Darius Thornclaw, the Alpha King who'd crushed 3 rival packs before his 30th birthday. The billionaire who collected enemies like other people collected stamps. The beautiful tyrant whose engagement to Serafina Silvercrest had been plastered across every news channel for weeks. The man who looked at Omegas like they were furniture. Useful. Disposable. Remy was neither useful nor disposable. They were invisible. A 24-year-old nobody who worked night shifts cleaning hospital floors because it was the only job that didn't require them to be around people during the day. Who lived in a basement apartment that smelled like mold and defeat. Whose mutation made them too sensitive to function in normal Omega society, too broken to bond, too damaged to matter. But right now, with that scent filling their lungs, their Omega instincts didn't care about any of that. They cared that their alpha was dying. Not my alpha, Remy thought desperately, but their feet were already moving. The surgical theater was chaos. Through the observation window, Remy could see at least a dozen doctors in blood-spattered scrubs swarming around a table. Security guards lined the walls, hands on weapons. A woman in a designer suit, Serafina, Remy realized, stood frozen near the door, her perfect face blank with shock. And on the table, dying in slow motion, was the most beautiful man Remy had ever seen. Even half-dead, Darius Thornclaw was devastating. Black hair, sharp cheekbones, a body built like violence and grace had a baby and named it perfection. But his skin was gray. His chest barely moved. And the machines around him were screaming. More adrenaline, someone shouted. His pressure's crashing. Get me another unit of. They're killing him, Remy whispered. The head doctor was barking orders, pumping Darius full of drugs meant to counteract the poison. But Remy could smell the silver nitrate coating his insides, could sense how his immune system was tearing itself apart fighting the wolfsbane, could feel the way each treatment was making everything worse. They weren't killing the poison. They were killing him. Remy's hand hit the door before they realized they'd moved. Hey! A guard grabbed their arm, fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. The touch sent agony screaming through Remy's hypersensitive nerves, but they didn't care. Janitorial staff aren't allowed. You're treating the poison wrong, Remy gasped. The wolfsbane isn't the problem, it's the reaction. His body's rejecting the silver you're using to neutralize it. You have to stop. You have to. Security. The head doctor's voice cracked like a whip. Get this lunatic out of my operating room. Listen to me. Remy was shouting now, struggling against the guard's grip even though every point of contact felt like knives. The silver nitrate is bonding with his alpha hormones, it's creating a secondary toxin. You're poisoning him yourselves. Remove them. Now. 2 more guards converged. Remy's vision blurred with pain as hands grabbed them, dragged them backward. Through the window, They watched Darius convulse, watched the machines flatline and restart, watched the Alpha King die by inches. "No," Remy sobbed. "Please. Stop." The word was quiet, but it cut through the chaos like a blade through flesh. Every guard froze. Every doctor turned. And Remy found themselves staring into eyes like black ice, belonging to a face that was identical to the dying man on the table but somehow completely different. Cain Thornclaw. The twin. The beta heir. The cold shadow to Darius's burning sun. He stood in the doorway like he owned not just the room but the entire concept of space. Same devastating features as his brother, same lethal build, but where Darius was fire, Cain was frost. Where Darius conquered, Cain calculated. And he was looking at Remy like they were a puzzle he'd been trying to solve for a very long time. "Let them go," Cain said softly. The guards released Remy immediately. They stumbled, barely caught themselves. Cain moved closer. Too close. Close enough that Remy could smell him, ice and steel and something darker, something that made their Omega biology sit up and pay attention in ways that felt like betrayal. "You know what's killing him." It wasn't a question. Remy nodded, not trusting their voice. "Then you're going to save him." Cain tilted his head, studying Remy with the intensity of a predator examining prey. "You have 48 hours, little Omega. Fail, and I'll make sure your death is slow enough that you'll beg me to end it." Remy's breath caught. "I'm not. I don't have medical training. I just know. The scent, it tells me. I don't care if you read tea leaves and sacrifice chickens." Cain leaned in, his breath ghosting across Remy's throat, and their knees went weak. "You're going to save my brother. Because if he dies, this empire collapses. And I'll need someone to blame. Someone to break. Someone to..." He stopped, something flickering behind those obsidian eyes. Something almost like hunger. "Someone to punish," he finished, but the word felt wrong. Like he'd been about to say something else entirely. "And if I succeed?" Remy whispered, hating how their voice shook. Cain's smile was a knife wrapped in silk. "Then I'll give you anything you want." "Anything." His hand came up, fingers hovering a breath away from Remy's cheek. Not touching. Never touching. But close enough that Remy could feel the heat of him, the promise of pain or pleasure or something that lived in the space between. "Anything," he repeated, and the word was a threat and a gift and a curse all at once. They dragged Remy into a sterile prep room. Not gently, but not roughly either. Like they were handling something fragile that might explode. Through the walls, Remy could still smell Darius. Could feel him dying, inch by terrible inch. Their Omega biology was screaming. Not with fear. With want. With desperate, primal need to get to him, to save him, to... No. Remy pressed their palms against their eyes. "This isn't real. It's the mutation. It's the pheromones. It's not real." But their body didn't believe them. Their body knew only one truth: somewhere in the next room, their alpha was dying. And even worse, even more terrifying than that impossible, unwanted bond, was the way their skin still burned where Cain had almost touched them. The way their Omega instincts were responding to both brothers, pulled in two directions by forces they couldn't name and definitely couldn't control. The door opened. A nurse thrust scrubs and gloves at them, her face carefully blank. "You have 48 hours, she said flatly. "Don't waste them." Remy's hands shook as they changed. In the next room, machines beat their desperate rhythm. In their chest, something fundamental was shifting, rearranging, rewriting rules they'd thought were carved in stone. They should run. Should bolt for the door and never look back. Instead, they pulled on the scrubs and walked toward the dying Alpha King. Toward fate. Toward ruin. Toward something that felt inevitable as gravity and twice as dangerous. In the surgical theater, Darius Thornclaw's hand twitched. His fingers reached toward nothing, grasping at empty air. And in his delirium, with death's cold hand already on his shoulder, he whispered a single word that no one else could hear. Omega. No one knew if it was a plea or a curse. But somewhere deep in the building, Remy's steps faltered as something ancient and terrible clicked into place between them. Chapter 2. Remy had been locked in the restricted wing for 6 hours, and they'd already identified 17 ways the king was going to die. The workspace was state-of-the-art, glass and steel and enough medical equipment to perform brain surgery on a small army. None of it mattered. Because the poison killing Darius Thornclaw wasn't just chemistry. It was art. Ancient, elegant, and designed by someone who knew exactly how to destroy an alpha king from the inside out. Remy's notebooks were scattered across 3 tables, filled with chemical formulas, botanical sketches, and increasingly desperate calculations. Their hands were steady despite the exhaustion clawing at them. Their mind was sharp despite the way Darius's scent kept drifting through the ventilation system, making their omega biology whimper and beg. Concentrate, they muttered, staring at the toxicology report for the 100th time. The poison was a hybrid. Modern chemistry twisted around ancient pack magic, wolfsbane married to silver in ways that should have been impossible. And underneath it all, Remy could smell the signature, faint but unmistakable. Whoever made this had touched it, breathed on it, left microscopic traces of themselves behind. Someone who knew the king intimately. Someone close. Remy's stomach turned as the implications crashed over them. This wasn't an enemy from outside the pack. This was family. Friend. Someone Darius trusted enough to let them get close. And finding the cure meant finding 3 things that might as well have been fairy tales. Moon petal. Extinct for 50 years, its silvery petal supposedly the only thing that could neutralize wolfsbane bonded to alpha blood. Tears of a willing alpha. Not forced. Not coerced. Freely given to an omega. Which was like asking for the moon to apologize for being distant. Blood of the poisoner. Unknown. Unidentified. Probably already scrubbing themselves clean of evidence. Impossible, Remy whispered, pressing their palms against their eyes. All of it. Impossible. Most worthwhile things are. Remy spun, heart slamming against their ribs. Kane stood in the doorway like he'd materialized from shadows. He probably had. Betas moved like smoke when they wanted to, and Kane Thornclaw wanted to very much. He wore all black, expensive and understated, his dark hair pushed back from a face that could have been carved from ice. In his hands, a stack of ancient medical texts and a bottle of whiskey that probably cost more than Remy's annual salary. How did you get in here? Remy demanded. The guards. Work for me. Kane moved into the room with predatory grace, setting the books on the nearest clear surface. As does everyone in this building. As does, technically, you. He uncorked the whiskey with his teeth, poured 2 glasses without asking. Though you're significantly more interesting than most of my employees. I'm not drinking with you. Suit yourself. Kane settled into a chair, long legs stretched out, and watched Remy with the intensity of a wolf watching wounded prey. But you haven't slept, you haven't eaten, and you're running on fumes and terror. The whiskey will at least give you something to burn besides yourself. He wasn't wrong. Remy's hands were shaking. Their head was pounding. And the mutation was making everything worse, every sound too loud, every light too bright, every scent a symphony of information they didn't know how to turn off. They took the glass. Drank. The whiskey burned like liquid fire down their throat, but it grounded them. Made the room stop spinning quite so badly. Better? Kane asked. Why are you here? Because you fascinate me. He said it like he was commenting on the weather. Casual. Easy. But his eyes were anything but casual. They stripped Remy bare, peeling away layers until Remy felt exposed in ways that had nothing to do with clothes. An omega who touches pain every day but still chooses to heal. Why? Remy turned back to their notes, unable to hold that gaze. I don't choose anything. The mutation chose for me. Liar. The word was soft. Almost affectionate. You chose to shove past armed guards to save a man who wouldn't piss on you if you were on fire. You chose to lock yourself in this room instead of running. You choose, Remy. Every minute. Every second. You choose to carry that pain. You don't know anything about me. Don't I? Kane leaned forward, elbows on his knees, and Remy could smell him, ice and steel and something hungry that made their omega biology sit up and pay attention. I've watched you for months. The way you flinch from crowds. The way you take the back exits, the side doors, the paths where no one else walks. You hide, little Omega. From the world. From yourself. From that gift that's also a curse. Remy's throat tightened. Stop. But not from me. Kane's voice dropped, dark as midnight. You're terrified of everyone and everything, but you're not afraid of me. Why is that? Because I am, Remy wanted to scream. I'm terrified of you. Of the way my body responds when you're near. Of how the mutation makes me smell your desire, sharp and possessive and hungry enough to swallow me whole. Instead they said, I don't have time for whatever game you're playing. This isn't a game. Kane stood, moving closer. Too close. Close enough that Remy's mutation flared, feeding them information they didn't want. His heart rate was elevated. His scent had shifted, become darker, more complex. Want. Curiosity. And underneath it all, something that tasted like obsession. I've been investigating corruption in my brother's court for 6 months. Someone's been siphoning money, making deals with rival packs, laying groundwork for a coup. And then this. He gestured toward the medical bay where Darius lay dying. Someone close to him wants him dead. I need your nose, Remy. I need you to tell me who. You want me to sniff out a traitor? I want you to save my brother long enough for me to destroy whoever did this. Kane's smile was cold. And then I want to watch what happens next. What does that mean? It means, he stopped, something flickering across his face. Something raw and honest and almost painful. My brother is everything our pack worships. Charismatic. Powerful. Beloved despite his cruelty. I've lived in his shadow my entire life. The spare. The cold one. The one nobody writes songs about. So you hate him. Part of me does. Kane's honesty was brutal. Part of me wants to watch him die. Wants to see his empire crumble. Wants to finally step out of that goddamn shadow and into the light. He paused, eyes locked on Remy's. But another part wants to see what happens if you save him. Because you, little Omega, might be the only thing in this world he can't own or destroy. I'm not a thing. No. Kane reached out, fingers hovering near Remy's jaw. Not touching. Never touching. But close enough that Remy felt the heat of him, the promise. You're a storm in a bottle. A weapon that doesn't know it's armed. And I want to see what happens when my brother finally meets something he can't conquer. The door burst open before Remy could respond. A woman strode in, late 40s, sharp-eyed, wearing a doctor's coat over designer clothes. Dr. Alara Voss. Remy recognized her from the earlier chaos, one of the few doctors who'd looked at them with something other than contempt. We need to talk, she said without preamble, then noticed Kane. Her expression shuddered. Privately. Anything you say to them, you can say to me. Kane didn't move from his position near Remy. Fine. Dr. Voss's jaw tightened. I know who made the poison. The room went silent. How? Remy breathed. Because my brother researched similar compounds. Her voice cracked. Before your brother had him executed for treason. She was looking at Kane now, and the hatred in her eyes was sharp enough to cut. Kane didn't flinch. Didn't deny it. Just watched her with that same cold calculation. Marcus Voss, Dr. Voss continued, spent 5 years studying how to kill alpha werewolves using hybridized poisons. He was brilliant, obsessed, and completely insane. She pulled a flash drive from her pocket, set it on the table. This is everything I could salvage from his research, including notes on the one ingredient that could neutralize his work. Moon petal, Remy said. Dr. Voss nodded. Extinct. Or supposedly. But if anyone would have kept a sample, if anyone would have been paranoid enough to maintain a backup. She looked at Kane. Check your brother's private greenhouse. If moon petal still exists anywhere in this world, Darius would have it. The greenhouse was a cathedral of glass and golden light, perched on the top floor of the Thornclaw estate like a crown jewel. Remy had never seen anything like it. Rare plants from every corner of the world, some so exotic they shouldn't exist anymore. The air was thick with the scent of earth and growing things, humid and warm and alive. Dawn was breaking outside, painting everything in shades of gold and amber. Remy moved through the rows alone. Kane had stayed behind to deal with security, claiming he'd join them shortly. But Remy was grateful for the solitude. Their mutation was going haywire in this place, feeding them sensory information about every plant, every chemical compound, every living thing. And then they smelled it. Moon petal. It was faint, delicate, like silver bells and starlight given form. Remy followed the scent through the greenhouse, past orchids and pitcher plants and things they couldn't name, until they found it. A single plant in a crystal pot, bathed in golden morning light. Its petals were silver, almost translucent, and they seemed to glow from within. Beautiful. Impossible. Alive. Remy reached for it with shaking hands. That's when they heard the footstep behind them. Remy spun, but too slow. The attack came fast and brutal, a figure in black lunging from between the plants. A knife flashed. Remy threw themselves sideways, but the blade caught their shoulder, tearing through cloth and skin. The pain hit like a bomb detonating. Remy's mutation exploded. Every sense amplified to levels that shouldn't be survivable. They could smell everything, the attacker's sweat, their fear, their rage, the specific chemical signature of their scent burned into Remy's brain like a brand. Could hear their heartbeat, their breathing, the whisper of cloth against skin. Could feel the vibrations of their movement through the air. Too much. Too much. Too much. Remy screamed, dropping to their knees as their senses tore them apart from the inside. The attacker hesitated. Just for a second. It was enough. They turned and ran, disappearing into the maze of plants. Remy collapsed into the soil, blood soaking through their shirt, the world spinning and fracturing around them. Their mutation was eating them alive, feeding them information faster than their brain could process. Drowning them in sensation. They were going to die here. Alone. In the dirt. Having failed before they'd even really started. Strong hands lifted them. Remy's vision swam, but they knew the scent. Thunderstorms and whiskey. Power and darkness. The scent that made their omega biology scream mine even as their rational minds shouted danger. Darius, they gasped. Omega, he rasped. He shouldn't be here. Shouldn't be conscious. Shouldn't be anything but dying in a hospital bed. But somehow the Alpha King had dragged himself from his deathbed, barely able to stand, his face gray and his body shaking. But his arms were steady as he held Remy. Their eyes met for the first time. Silver. His eyes were silver, like winter storms given form, like lightning frozen in ice. His face was carved from violence and power, sharp cheekbones and a jaw that could cut glass, dark hair sweat-soaked and falling across his forehead. Even dying, he was the most beautiful thing Remy had ever seen. And the most dangerous. His hand came up, cupping Remy's jaw with shocking gentleness. His thumb brushed across their cheekbone, and the touch sent electricity racing through Remy's body, their mutation making every point of contact feel like fire and ice and everything in between. Your scent, Darius whispered, his voice wrecked. Why do you smell like salvation and damnation? Remy should pull away. Should run. Should do anything except lean into that touch like a flower turning toward the sun. But their omega biology was screaming. The mutation was making everything more. His touch was electricity, his scent was oxygen, his proximity was both agony and relief. They were drowning in him, in the impossible rightness of being held by him, even though every logical part of their brain was screaming that this was wrong. "I'm saving you," Remy whispered. "Even though I shouldn't." Darius's laugh was broken glass and honey. "Then we're both damned, Omega. Because I felt you the moment I woke. Felt you like a hook in my chest, dragging me toward you even while poison tears me apart." His thumb traced their lower lip, and Remy's breath caught. "Tell me you feel it too. Tell me I'm not dying alone in this madness." "I feel it." The admission was ripped from somewhere deep. Somewhere Remy had tried to bury and lock away. "I feel everything. Too much. Always too much." "Good." His forehead pressed against theirs, and the intimacy of it stole Remy's breath. "Because I don't know how to want anything in halves. And I want you, little Omega. Want you with a hunger that should terrify me. Want you even though I don't understand it. Want you even though it might kill us both." "You're engaged," Remy said desperately. "To Serafina. You're bound by contracts and politics and everything that doesn't matter." Darius's grip tightened. "She doesn't want me. Not really. She wants the crown, the power, the position. But you." His breath ghosted across Remy's lips. "You look at me like you wish you didn't want me. Like it's tearing you apart. That's real. That's honest. That's everything I've never had. This is the poison talking. Maybe." He pulled back enough to meet their eyes. "Or maybe it's the first honest thing I've felt in a century." Remy wanted to argue. Wanted to push him away. Wanted to do anything except what they actually did, which was clutch the moonpetal pot in one hand while letting the Alpha King carry them back toward the medical wing like they weighed nothing. Like they were precious. Like they mattered. It was a lie. Had to be a lie. But God, Remy wanted it to be true. Back in the restricted wing, Remy worked with desperate focus while Darius watched from a medical cot they'd forced him onto. He looked like death warmed over, gray skin, shaking hands, eyes too bright with fever. But he refused to leave. Refused to let Remy out of his sight. "Tell me about the poison," Remy said, grinding the moon petal into a fine powder. The scent of it filled the room, silver and starlight and something ancient. "What about it? Who wants you dead?" Darius's laugh was bitter. "Shorter list would be who doesn't. I've made a lot of enemies, Omega. Crushed a lot of packs. Destroyed a lot of lives in the name of power and expansion. Do you regret it?" "Some of it." His honesty surprised them. "Most of it I'd do again. I'm not a good man, Remy. I'm a necessary one. The world we live in doesn't reward kindness. It rewards strength. Control. The willingness to do whatever it takes. Even murder. Especially murder." He met their eyes. "Does that terrify you? Make you want to let me die?" "Yes." Remy didn't lie. "But I'm still going to save you." "Why?" "Because," they stopped, throat tight. "I don't know. Maybe because you're honest about being a monster. Maybe because my Omega biology won't let me watch you die. Maybe because I'm an idiot. All valid reasons." Darius's smile was sharp. "But I think it's more than that. I think you see something in me worth saving. Something under all the violence and cruelty. And that makes you either very brave or very stupid. Can't it be both?" "Usually is." Remy finished preparing the moonpetal extract, their hands steady despite the exhaustion. One ingredient down. 2 to go. The tears would be hardest. Not just any tears, they had to be freely given by an alpha to an omega. Willingly. Without coercion. It was an ancient ritual, something primal in werewolf biology that spoke to bonds and submission and trust. And Darius Thornclaw didn't submit to anyone. "I need your tears," Remy said quietly. Darius went very still. "What?" "The cure requires tears of a willing alpha. Given freely to an omega." Remy couldn't meet his eyes. "It's part of the ritual. Part of what will bind the ingredients together and neutralize the poison. Alphas don't cry for omegas." "I know. It's a sign of weakness. Submission." "I know. If anyone found out." "I know." Remy snapped, whirling on him. "I know it's impossible. I know what I'm asking. But it's this or you die, so you need to decide what matters more, your pride or your life." Darius stared at them. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then the Alpha King started to convulse. It happened fast, his body seizing, back arching off the cot, eyes rolling back. The poison was advancing, eating through the temporary suppressants they'd been pumping into him. He was dying. Right here. Right now. "No." Remy lunged forward, catching him as he fell. Their mutation exploded with proximity, feeding them every agonizing detail of his body shutting down. They could smell death on him, could feel it in the irregular thunder of his heartbeat. Darius's hand found theirs, gripping with desperate strength. His eyes met theirs, silver and storm-dark and terrified. "I don't want to die," he whispered, and his voice broke. "Not like this. Not before I understand why you're the first thing that's felt real in a century." And then tears, real, honest tears, slid down his face. The Alpha King was crying. For them. Because of them. Remy's hand came up instinctively, catching the tears against their palm. They were warm, almost burning, and they glowed faintly in the low light. Alpha tears given to an omega. The rarest magic in their world. "I've got you," Remy whispered, their own tears mixing with his. "I've got you. You're not dying today." Darius's grip tightened. "Promise me." "I promise." They didn't know if they could keep that promise. Didn't know if anything they did would be enough. But as they held the Alpha King while he wept against their palm, as they felt something ancient and terrible and beautiful snap into place between them, Remy knew one thing for certain. They were damned. Both of them. Together. And there was no cure for that. Chapter 3. Darius Thornclaw woke like a man clawing out of his own grave. His eyes snapped open, silver and wild and burning with something that looked like madness. His chest heaved. His hands fisted in the sheets. And the first words out of his mouth made the entire medical wing go silent. "Where is my omega?" The 6 guards stationed around his bed went rigid. The 3 doctors monitoring his vitals froze. And in the corner, Serafina Silvercrest, perfect, poised, unutterably beautiful in her designer suit, went white. "Darius," she said carefully, moving forward with the grace of a woman who'd been trained since birth to handle difficult situations. "You've been unconscious for. I don't care." He sat up, and every alpha in the room felt the weight of his dominance slam down like a hammer. Even weakened, even half-dead, he was still the king. "Where is my omega?" Remy stepped out from behind the partition where they'd been cleaning up, still covered in dirt and blood from the greenhouse attack. Their shoulder was bandaged, their hands were shaking, and they looked like they'd gone 10 rounds with death and barely won. Darius's eyes locked on them. The room temperature dropped 10 degrees. "Mine," he breathed, and the word was possession and promise and prayer all at once. Before anyone could move, the double doors burst open. The Pack Council swept in like a storm, 12 of the most powerful alphas in the Thornclaw territory, led by Elder Marcus Blackwood. He was old, scarred, and absolutely merciless. His eyes swept the room, landed on Remy, and filled with contempt. "What is this Omega doing in the King's recovery room?" he demanded. They saved his life, Dr. Voss said quietly from her position near the monitors. They bewitched him. This came from Serafina, and her voice was ice wrapped in silk. She looked at Remy with hatred so pure it was almost beautiful. Look at him. He wakes from death's door and the first thing he does is call for this, nobody. This janitor. It's unnatural. Wrong. It's Omega magic, another council member spat. They've ensnared him. Corrupted the bond. There is no bond, Remy said, finding their voice even though terror was clawing up their throat. I helped. That's all. You claimed an Alpha King's attention, Elder Blackwood said coldly. That alone is punishable by death. The room exploded. Guards moved toward Remy. The council started shouting. Serafina's smile was sharp as knives. And Darius. Darius erupted from the bed like a force of nature. He was barely healed. Still gray-skinned and shaking. But when he moved, every alpha in the room felt it in their bones. He positioned himself between Remy and the guards, his body a wall, his dominance a weapon. Touch them, he said, voice soft as a knife sliding between ribs, and I will end you. Every single one. Darius. Serafina's voice cracked. What are you doing? What I should have done the moment I woke. He turned to face the council, and his eyes were absolutely feral. I invoke royal claim. The room went silent. Royal claim. Ancient law. Rarely used. It allowed a king to mark any subject as untouchable property, protected by the throne itself. To harm them was to commit treason. To threaten them was to threaten the crown. It was absolute power. Absolute possession. You can't, Elder Blackwood breathed. Your engagement to Serafina is political theater. This, Darius reached back, grabbed Remy's wrist, pulled them forward. This is real. No, Remy whispered, trying to pull away. Don't. But Darius wasn't listening. His hand wrapped around Remy's wrist, and his claws extended, not to hurt, but to mark. He carved his sigil into their skin with surgical precision, a crown wrapped in thorns, bleeding silver. The pain was white-hot and instant. The bond was worse. It snapped into place like a chain made of fire, wrapping around Remy's chest, their throat, their very soul. They could feel him suddenly, every heartbeat, every breath, every emotion bleeding through the connection. Possession. Hunger. Desperate, clawing need. This Omega belongs to me, Darius announced to the room. Touch them, and die. Remy stared at the mark burning on their wrist, at the blood dripping down their arm, at the man who just branded them in front of witnesses. You don't own me, they whispered. Darius met their eyes, and his smile was terrible. I know. But now they can't kill you. They dragged Remy to the king's private chambers, not violently, but with absolute authority. The rooms were obscene, all dark wood and expensive fabrics, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, a bed that could sleep 6 people comfortably. A gilded cage. The door locked behind them with a click that sounded like a prison sentence. Remy whirled on Darius, fury overriding fear. You had no right. I had every right. He leaned against the door, still too pale, still shaking slightly. But his eyes were clear. Sharp. Focused entirely on them. The alternative was watching them rip you apart. The council wanted your execution, Remy. Serafina wanted your head on a spike. I did the only thing I could to protect you. By making me your property. Remy's laugh was jagged. That's not protection. That's ownership. There's a difference. In this world, there isn't. Darius pushed off the door, moving toward them with predatory intent. You think I don't know how this looks? You think I wanted to brand you like cattle? But I'm a king, Remy. Not a hero. And in my world, the only way to keep something precious safe is to claim it so thoroughly that no one dares touch it. I'm not a thing to be claimed. I know that. The words erupted from him, raw and jagged. He backed them against the wall, not touching but close enough that Remy could feel the heat of him, the barely controlled violence. God, I know that. But you don't understand. When I was dying, your scent was the only thing that made me want to live. Not my empire. Not my power. Not even my own goddamn pride. Just you. The smell of you. The presence of you. Like oxygen to a drowning man. His hand came up, hovering near their face. Not touching. Never touching without permission, even now. You looked at me like I was worth saving when no one else in my life ever has. My own pack sees me as a weapon. My council sees me as a tool. Serafina sees me as a crown she can wear. But you, his voice cracked. You saw me dying and tried to save me anyway, even though you had every reason to let me bleed out. That's real. That's honest. And I'm obsessed with it. With you. This isn't love, Remy whispered, even as their omega biology screamed at them to lean into his touch, to submit, to give in. This is possession wrapped in pretty words. Maybe. His eyes were storm silver and devastating. I don't know if what I feel is the poison's aftermath or fate or my own damnation. But I can't let you go. Won't let you go. Even if it makes me a monster. You already are a monster. I know. His smile was broken glass. But I'm your monster now. Whether you want me or not. Remy's chest tightened. This was wrong. All of it. The mark burning on their wrist, the bond pulling at their chest, the way their body craved his proximity even as their minds screamed danger. But before they could respond, the door opened. Cain stood in the doorway, and the temperature plummeted. Claiming what isn't yours, brother? His voice was smooth as poisoned honey. He looked immaculate, all black suit and cold eyes, not a hair out of place. The perfect contrast to Darius's barely controlled chaos. His obsidian gaze slid to Remy, and something flickered in those depths. Something hungry and possessive and absolutely terrifying. Did he tell you what royal claim really means? Cain stepped into the room like he owned it. Maybe he did. Everything in this estate technically belonged to both brothers. It makes you property. A pretty bird in a golden cage. You'll never leave. Never be free. You'll be his until one of you dies. Get out, Darius growled. No, I don't think I will. Cain circled them slowly, and Remy's mutation flared, feeding them information about his scent, his heartbeat, his intentions. Want. Strategy. And underneath it all, genuine concern twisted up with obsession. You're weak, Darius. Still poisoned. Still dying by inches. And you think you can hold a claim? Try me. Oh, I intend to. Cain stopped, facing his brother with a smile that was all teeth. I'm invoking challenge right. If you're strong enough to claim an Omega, prove you're strong enough to keep your throne. The room went deadly silent. Challenge right. Ancient pack law. It allowed any blood relative to challenge a weakened king's fitness to rule. If accepted, the king had 3 days to prove their strength through a series of trials. If they failed, or refused, they abdicated. The throne would pass to the challenger. Darius went very still. You want my crown that badly? I want you to admit you're not fit to wear it. Cain's eyes never left Remy. You're obsessed. Compromised. You just burned every political alliance we have by spurning Serafina for a nobody Omega. If I don't challenge you, the council will. At least this way, it's family. Family. Darius laughed, bitter as poison. You've wanted me dead since we were children. Not dead. Just, dethroned. Cain's smile was cold. Besides, refusing means releasing your precious Omega to pack justice. And we both know what that means. Remy's blood turned to ice. They were the leverage. The pressure point. The thing that made an alpha king vulnerable. 3 days, Darius said quietly. Dangerously. I accept your challenge, brother. And when I win, when I prove I'm fit to rule, I'm going to make you regret every moment of this. We'll see. Cain turned to leave, then paused at the door. His eyes found Remy's one last time. By the way, little Omega, you should know that royal claim can be transferred. If something happens to Darius, you belong to whoever takes the throne. He left, closing the door with a soft click. The silence was suffocating. He's going to kill you, Remy whispered. Probably. Darius sank onto the edge of the bed, exhaustion finally catching up with him. The trials are brutal. Combat. Strategy. Dominance displays. And I'm still recovering from poison that should have killed me. Then why did you accept? Because refusing means giving you up. He looked at them, and his eyes were raw. And I can't do that. Won't do that. I'd rather die fighting than live knowing I let them destroy you. Remy's throat tightened. This was insane. All of it. A king willing to risk his throne for an Omega he barely knew. A bond formed in desperation and blood. A claim that felt like a collar and a shield all at once. They should hate him. But their Omega biology was singing, and the mutation made them feel every ounce of his sincerity, every thread of his obsession, every desperate edge of his need. It was too much. I need air, Remy said, moving toward the balcony doors. Don't run. Darius's voice stopped them. Please. I know he dragged a hand through his hair, looking more vulnerable than a king should ever look. Just don't run. Not yet. Remy didn't run. But they didn't go back to him either. They stood at the window, watching the city lights blur through tears they refused to shed, and wondered how saving a life had destroyed their own. Midnight found Remy alone on the balcony, unable to sleep, unable to think, unable to do anything but stare at the mark burning on their wrist. The sound of footsteps made them turn. Cain stood in the doorway, shadows clinging to him like old friends. You shouldn't be here, Remy said. My brother's asleep. Exhausted from playing king. Cain moved closer, each step deliberate. I wanted to talk to you. Alone. About what? About choice. He stopped just close enough that Remy's mutation flared, feeding them his scent, ice and steel and something that tasted like longing. I've wanted you since I first saw you flinch from touch but still reach for others with kindness. You're gentle in a world that rewards cruelty. Soft in a world that demands hardness. And it made me want to protect you. To possess you. To stop. No. He kept coming, backing Remy against the railing. My brother takes what he wants. Demands. Claims. Owns. But I could give you choice, Remy. I could give you freedom. By taking his throne? By removing the chain he's wrapped around your neck. Cain's hand came up, fingers ghosting along their jaw. The almost touch made Remy's breath catch. Choose me, and I'll give you the world. No claims. No marks. Just us. And if I don't? Then he'll consume you until nothing's left. Cain's thumb brushed across their lower lip, and the touch was electricity. He doesn't know how to love, Remy. Only how to own. But his voice dropped. I could worship you. If you let me. Before Remy could respond, he kissed them. It was nothing like they'd imagined. Not forceful or demanding, but soft. Almost gentle. Cold fire to Darius's burning heat, ice that somehow scorched worse than flame. And God help them, their body responded. The mutation made them feel everything, his desire, sharp as broken glass. His obsession, deep as an ocean. His genuine belief that this was somehow better, somehow right. Remy shoved him away, gasping. Don't. Too late. Cain's smile was sad. You felt it too. The pull. The possibility. You're caught between us now, little Omega. Two brothers who want you for different reasons. One who'll cage you in gold. One who'll set you free in ice. He stepped back. Choose wisely. You only get one chance. He left, disappearing into shadows. Remy sagged against the railing, touching their lips with shaking fingers. They could still taste him. Could still feel the ghost of his touch. And underneath the mark on their wrist, they could feel Darius's presence through the bond, sleeping, exhausted, unaware that his twin had just kissed his claimed Omega. I'm going to die here, Remy whispered to the night. One way or another. Dawn brought Dr. Voss. She arrived with armed guards and a medical case, her face grim. We need to talk, she said. Remy's stomach dropped. What's wrong? Dr. Voss set up a portable scanner, made Remy sit. Her hands were gentle but her expression was carved from stone. Your mutation, she said quietly. It's killing you. The words didn't register at first. Couldn't register. What? The constant sensory overload is causing microhemorrhaging in your brain. Small at first, but cumulative. Progressive. She pulled up scans on her tablet, showing bright spots scattered through Remy's cerebral cortex. Every time your mutation flares, every crowd, every touch, every intense scent, it damages your neural pathways a little more. Remy stared at the scans. At the proof of their own destruction written in medical imaging. How long? Without treatment? Weeks. Maybe months. Dr. Voss's voice cracked. I'm sorry, Remy. Saving the king might have condemned you to death. The room tilted. Spun. Remy's breath came short and sharp. Can you fix it? I don't know. The mutation is genetic. Embedded in every cell. Trying to suppress it might kill you faster. But letting it continue. She closed her eyes. You're burning yourself out from the inside. Like a star going supernova. Does he know? Remy gestured toward the bedroom where Darius still slept. The king? Not yet. But he needs to. This changes everything. No. Remy stood on shaking legs. He can't know. If he knows I'm dying, he'll. They stopped, not sure how to finish that sentence. Would he try to save them? Would he see them as damaged goods? Would he transfer the claim to someone healthier? He has a right to know, Dr. Voss said gently. He has a right to his throne. To winning his brother's challenge. Remy's voice broke. He doesn't need another burden. Not now. Dr. Voss studied them for a long moment. You care about him. No. The denial was automatic. I saved his life. I'm not going to ruin it by making myself his problem. Too late for that, little Omega. The voice came from the doorway. Darius stood there, shirtless and scarred, silver eyes burning. He'd heard everything. Every word. Every diagnosis. Every death sentence. You're dying, he said flatly. Remy couldn't speak. Because of me. Because you saved me. Because you, his hands fisted at his sides. How long? Darius. How? Long. Weeks, Remy whispered. Maybe months. Dr. Voss doesn't know. Something terrible moved across his face. Grief. Rage. Guilt. Then we fix it. There might not be a fix. Then I'll find one. He moved toward them, each step weighted with absolute conviction. I'll tear this world apart if I have to. I'll burn every resource I have. His voice cracked. I will not let you die. Not after everything. Not when I just found you. You don't even know me. I know enough. His hands cupped their face with devastating gentleness. I know you saved my life when you had every reason to let me die. I know you're gentle in ways I don't understand. I know you look at me like I'm more than a crown. And I know," his forehead pressed against theirs. "I know that losing you would destroy me in ways poison never could." Remy's tears finally fell. This isn't love. This is guilt. Maybe it started that way. His thumbs wiped at their tears. But it's not anymore. And I'm not letting you go. Not to death. Not to my brother. Not to anything. You're not strong enough to save me. Then I'll get stronger. His smile was terrible and beautiful. I'm the Alpha King, Omega. I don't lose. Not my throne. Not my battles. And certainly not you. Dr. Voss cleared her throat. If you're serious about saving them, we need to start immediately. Research. Specialists. Experimental treatments. Whatever it costs. Darius didn't look away from Remy. Whatever it takes. Remy wanted to argue. Wanted to push him away. Wanted to do anything except lean into his touch and let themselves believe that maybe, he could actually save them. But they were so tired. And he felt so solid. And the mark on their wrist was burning like a brand that said, "You're mine, and I don't let go of what's mine." "Okay," Remy whispered. "Okay." Outside, the sun rose over the city. 3 days until the challenge trials. Weeks until Remy's mutation consumed them completely. And somewhere in the estate, Kane Thornclaw smiled into his whiskey and plotted how to save an Omega by destroying a king. The game wasn't over. It was only just beginning. Chapter 4. The Grand Hall was built to intimidate. Vaulted ceilings that swallowed sound. Stone walls carved with the history of conquest. 12 council seats arranged in a semicircle, each occupied by an alpha who'd earned their power through blood and brutality. And at the center, a ceremonial circle where accused and accuser stood to face judgment. Remy had never been inside this room before. Janitors didn't get invited to the seat of pack power. Now they stood in the circle, surrounded by hostile faces, while their mutation screamed at them about danger and violence and death lurking in every shadow. The challenge trial had begun. Darius stood rigid beside the Alpha throne, looking like death warmed over. 3 days of limited rest and experimental treatments had brought color back to his face, but his eyes were still too bright, his movements still too careful. He was healing, but not healed. Strong, but not strong enough. And Kane stood opposite him, immaculate in a black suit, his expression carefully neutral. But Remy could smell his satisfaction, sharp and cold as winter wind. Elder Blackwood rose from his council seat, his voice carrying like thunder. "We are here to determine if King Darius Thornclaw is fit to rule. The challenge has been invoked by his blood brother, Kane Thornclaw, under ancient law." His eyes swept the room. The trial chosen is trial by truth, where lies burn and honesty bleeds, and the shaman's magic compels confession. A figure emerged from the shadows, the pack shaman, ancient and terrible, her eyes milky white and seeing everything. She carried a ceremonial blade and a bowl of something that smelled like blood and moonlight. "The accused will answer," she intoned, her voice like gravel and honey. "And truth will be known." Darius stepped forward, but Remy moved faster. "I invoke Omega's gambit." The silence was absolute. Every head turned. Every eye locked on them. "What did you say?" Elder Blackwood's voice was dangerous. Remy's hands were shaking, but their voice was steady. "Omega's gambit. Ancient law. An Omega may take a trial in an Alpha's place. If I pass, you release Darius from the challenge and grant me autonomy. If I fail," their throat tightened. "Kill me. But let him live." "No." Darius moved toward them, his dominance slamming through the room. "Absolutely not. You're not. It's not your choice." Remy met his eyes, and the bond between them pulled tight, aching. "It's mine. For once in my life, this is mine. You're dying, Darius said, low and desperate. Your mutation is killing you. This trial will accelerate it. You'll burn yourself out completely. Then I'll burn. Remy turned to face the council. But at least it'll be my choice. My terms. My ending. Remy. Kane's voice cut through the tension, and when Remy looked at him, his carefully controlled mask had cracked. He looked gutted. Don't do this. There are other ways. Are there? Remy laughed, bitter as poison. You challenge your brother. The council wants me dead. Darius is too weak to survive the trials. This is the only way everyone gets what they want: truth, justice, and an ending. They looked at the shaman. Will you accept the gambit? The ancient woman studied them with those terrible white eyes. The law allows it. But Omega, the trial by truth is not gentle. It will strip you bare. Every secret. Every fear. Every hidden truth will be dragged into the light and examined. Can you survive that? I've survived worse. Remy stepped into the ceremonial circle. Let's begin. The shaman's magic was like drowning in ice water. She cut Remy's palm with the ceremonial blade, let their blood drip into the bowl, then painted symbols on their forehead with the mixture. The moment the blood touched their skin, Remy's mutation exploded. Every sense amplified to impossible levels. They could smell every person in the room: fear, excitement, guilt, hatred, love. Could hear heartbeats like thunder, breathing like windstorms. Could see micro-expressions, tiny muscle twitches, the shift of weight that telegraphed intentions. It was agony. It was also power. The shaman began, "Did you bewitch the Alpha King?" The question hung in the air like a blade. Remy felt the magic coil around them, ready to punish lies with pain. No. The word came easily. I saved him. That's all. No pain. Only truth. The council murmured. The shaman continued, "Do you desire power?" Remy's laugh was sharp. I desire to stop being powerless. There's a difference. Truth. The magic accepted it. Do you seek to destroy pack hierarchy? I seek to survive it. Remy met Elder Blackwood's hostile gaze. But if surviving means changing it? Then yes. I want Omegas to be more than property. More than prizes. More than things alphas claim and discard. Truth, and half the council shifted uncomfortably. The shaman moved closer, her white eyes seeing too much. Do you love the Alpha King? Remy's breath caught. The room waited. Their mutation flared, showing them everything. Darius's scent gone desperate and possessive and agonized. Kane's turned dark and hungry and heartbreakingly resigned. The council's anticipation like sharks smelling blood in water. I don't know if it's love or biology or madness, Remy said quietly. But yes. I feel something that's destroying me. Something that makes me want to save him even when it kills me. Something that feels inevitable as gravity and twice as dangerous. The honesty made half the council gasp. Truth. Raw. Undeniable. Darius made a sound like something breaking. The shaman smiled, terrible and knowing. One final question, Omega. The question that matters most. She raised the blade. Who poisoned the Alpha King? The room held its breath. Remy's mutation exploded like a supernova. Every scent in the room hit them at once, dozens of people, hundreds of chemical signatures, thousands of microscopic details. But their mutation sorted through it all with terrible precision, finding the pattern, the connection, the truth buried under layers of perfume and time. Moonpetal residue. Faint but unmistakable. Silver compounds. Embedded under fingernails. Guilt. Sharp as broken glass and twice as cutting. Remy's eyes found the source and locked on. Lydia Thornclaw. Their voice rang through the hall. The Dowager Queen. And Seraphine's Silvercrest helped her. Chaos erupted. Alphas surged to their feet. Guards moved toward weapons. Voices rose in denial and accusation and shock. But Lydia Thornclaw stood with terrifying calm. She was beautiful, silver hair, regal bearing, a face carved from ice and ambition. She'd been sitting in the gallery, watching the proceedings like theater. Now she descended the stairs with unhurried grace. "Guilty," she said simply. The word cut through the chaos like a knife. "Mother," Darius breathed, and the betrayal in his voice could have shattered mountains. "Don't look at me like that." Lydia's tone was almost affectionate. "You were going to dismantle everything I built. Pack hierarchy. Arranged matings. Hereditary power. You spoke of reforms, of equality, of treating Omegas as," her lip curled. "People. You would have destroyed 5 centuries of tradition. So you tried to kill me? I tried to save our way of life." She turned to Remy, studying them like an interesting insect. "You were supposed to be too broken to save him. Your mutation should have made you useless, too sensitive to function, too damaged to matter. I underestimated you, little Omega. That was my mistake." "One of many," Elder Blackwood said coldly. He stood, his dominance filling the room. "Lydia Thornclaw, you are accused of regicide and—" "No." Seraphine erupted from her seat in the gallery, and Remy's mutation screamed warning half a second before she moved. She had a silver blade, small, ornate, deadly. She was fast, alpha fast, covering the distance to the ceremonial circle in heartbeats. Her face was twisted with rage and desperation and something that looked like madness. "You ruined everything," she screamed at Remy. "I was supposed to be queen. I was supposed to." Her blade arced toward Remy's throat. But Remy's dying body moved on pure instinct. The mutation made them see the attack in slow motion. Every muscle contraction, every shift of weight, every microscopic tell that screamed intention. They twisted, grabbed Seraphine's wrist mid-strike, used her momentum against her. The blade redirected. Seraphine stumbled, and the silver cut deep across Remy's palm. Blood, bright and hot, dripped onto the ceremonial floor. Time stopped. Remy stared at their bleeding hand, at the blood mixing with the shaman's ritual markings, at the way it seemed to glow in the low light. Blood of the poisoner. The final ingredient. "Oh my God," Dr. Voss breathed from where she stood near the medical bay. She was already moving, already shouting. "Someone get the king. We need his blood sample now. The cure, we can complete the cure." But Remy barely heard her. Because their mutation was consuming them. The sensory overload had been building throughout the trial, every question, every emotional spike, every scent and sound hammering against their overtaxed nervous system. And now, with adrenaline and blood loss and 3 days of no sleep, it hit critical mass. Their vision whited out. Their knees buckled. They heard screaming, maybe their own, maybe someone else's, and then strong arms caught them before they hit the ground. "No," Darius's voice, ragged and desperate. "No, no, no. Remy. Stay with me. Stay with me." But Remy was falling into darkness, their mutation finally burning them out completely. The last thing they felt was his heartbeat against their cheek. The last thing they heard was him roaring for doctors. The last thing they thought was, "At least it was my choice." Then nothing. Waking was like clawing through layers of cotton and broken glass. Remy surfaced slowly, consciousness returning in fragments. Soft sheets. Warm sunlight. The smell of expensive cologne and antiseptic and Darius. Their eyes opened. They were in his private chambers, in his enormous bed, buried under silk sheets that probably cost more than their entire apartment. Medical equipment beeped quietly nearby. And slumped in a chair beside the bed, looking like he'd gone 3 rounds with death and lost, was the Alpha King. He was asleep. Or maybe passed out. His head rested on the mattress near Remy's hand, dark hair falling across his face. He looked haggard, shadows under his eyes, stubble on his jaw, his expensive shirt wrinkled and bloodstained. Beautiful and broken and absolutely devoted. Remy's chest tightened. They tried to sit up, and the movement must have woken him because his head snapped up, silver eyes going wide. "You're awake." His voice was wrecked. "Oh God, you're awake. How long?" 3 days. He reached for their hand, then stopped himself, fingers hovering. Like he was afraid to touch. Afraid they'd shatter. "You were dying, Remy. For 3 days, you were dying, and I couldn't do anything but watch and wait and pray to gods I don't believe in." Remy looked at their hands. The cut from Seraphine's blade was healed, clean pink scar tissue. But more than that, something felt different. Quieter. "My mutation," they whispered. "Stabilized." Dr. Voss appeared in the doorway, looking tired but triumphant. "Using Seraphine's blood as a base, I created a treatment that regulates your sensory input. It won't cure the mutation, you'll always be more sensitive than normal omegas, but it should stop the hemorrhaging. Give you control instead of just suffering." Tears burned Remy's eyes. "I'm not dying. Not today." Dr. Voss smiled. "Though you gave us all several gray hairs getting here." Remy turned back to Darius. He was watching them with such raw emotion that it hurt to look at. "Where's Kane?" Remy asked. Something flickered across Darius's face. Pain. Guilt. Loss. Gone. "He left the pack 2 days ago." Said, his voice cracked. "Said he couldn't watch you choose me when he knew I didn't deserve you." He dragged a hand through his hair. "He's right. About all of it. I claimed you like property. I was so terrified of losing you that I became exactly what you hate." He stood, moved to the window, put distance between them. When he spoke again, his voice was flat. Professional. The voice of a king delivering a decree. "I'm removing the royal claim." Remy's heart stopped. "What? You never wanted it. Never asked for it. I forced it on you to protect you, but really," he turned, and his eyes were devastated. "Really, I was protecting myself. From losing you. From facing that I'm not good enough to keep you any other way." He pulled a ceremonial blade from his belt. The same one the shaman had used. He cut his palm, let blood well, then reached for Remy's wrist. The wrist with his mark. "Don't," Remy said. "I have to." He pressed his bleeding palm against the mark. The pain was instant and intense, burning like fire, like the brand was being torn away from the inside. Remy gasped, and Darius's free hand came up to cup their face. "You're free. Truly free. No claims. No bonds. No cage." The mark dissolved, disappearing like it had never existed. The bond between them snapped. Remy felt the absence like losing a limb. "Lydia's imprisoned pending trial," Darius continued, his voice mechanical. "Seraphine's been exiled. The councils agreed to reforms, Omega rights, representation, ending arranged matings. Everything I should have done years ago but was too cowardly and comfortable to attempt. Why now?" He looked at them, and his smile was broken. "Because you made me want to be worthy of your scent. Because you looked at me, really looked at me, and saw someone worth saving. And I couldn't let that be for nothing." Remy should feel relieved. Should feel free. Should feel anything except this hollowness where the bond used to live. "What if I don't want freedom from you?" The words came out small. Scared. "What if I want choice with you?" Darius froze. "What? You took the choice away when you claimed me." Remy sat up fully, ignoring their bodies' protests. "But now I have it back. So I'm choosing." They held out their hand. "I'm choosing this. You. Us. Not because biology compels me or because you own me, but because I want to. Remy. I'm not finished. Their voice strengthened. I want you to prove you can love me without owning me. I want partnership, not possession. I want to be seen, not just protected. And I want, their voice cracked. I want you to try. Every day. To be better than what you were raised to be. Darius moved toward them like a man in a dream. He took their offered hand with devastating gentleness. I don't deserve you, he whispered. Probably not. Remy's smile was watery. But maybe that's the point. Maybe love isn't about deserving. Maybe it's about choosing to try anyway. I'll spend every day proving I can do this right. His forehead pressed against theirs. I swear it. On my crown. On my life. On everything I am or ever will be. Good. Remy kissed him softly. Briefly. A promise instead of a claim. Because I'm holding you to that. 6 months later, the greenhouse looked different in winter light. Remy stood among the plants, reviewing medical charts on a tablet. Chief Medical Advisor, the position had been created specifically for them, along with a seat on the Pack Council and legislative power over Omega welfare. They were changing things from the inside, slowly but surely. Their mutation was controlled now. Still present, still powerful, but manageable. They wore a medical bracelet that monitored their neural activity and dispensed suppressants when needed. Dr. Voss had called it a miracle. Remy called it survival. The greenhouse door opened. Darius appeared, looking devastating in a dark suit, his silver eyes finding them immediately. He'd kept every promise. Spent 6 months proving that love could exist without possession, that protection didn't require ownership, that partnership was stronger than domination. It wasn't perfect. They still fought. Still struggled. Still had moments where his alpha instincts clashed with their need for autonomy. But they were trying. Both of them. Every day. I got a letter, Darius said without preamble. From Kane. Remy's breath caught. And? He's coming back. Next week. He wants, Darius's jaw tightened. He wants to see you. The air between them went heavy. Are you afraid I'll choose him? Remy asked quietly. Terrified. Darius closed the distance between them, cupped their face with hands that shook slightly. Every day, I'm terrified. That you'll wake up and realize I'm not enough. That you'll remember how he offered you freedom while I offered you chains. That. Remy kissed him quiet. Long and deep and absolutely certain. When they pulled back, their smile was real. I don't need freedom from you anymore. I needed freedom with you. There's a difference. And Kane? We'll figure it out. Together. Remy laced their fingers through his. He's your brother. He matters to you, which means he matters to me. And maybe, they paused, considering. Maybe he deserves to know that I'm grateful for what he offered, even if I didn't choose it. Darius pulled them close, buried his face in their hair, and breathed like they were oxygen. I love you. I don't say it enough. I love you so much it terrifies me. I know. Remy held him tight. I love you too. Even when you're difficult. Even when we fight. Even when it's hard. They pulled back enough to meet his eyes. Especially then. The greenhouse door opened again. They both turned. And there, backlit by afternoon sun, stood Kane Thornclaw. He looked different, leaner, harder, his dark hair longer and his obsidian eyes haunted. He'd left as the cold beta air. He'd returned as something else entirely. Hello, little Omega, he said softly. Brother. Remy felt Darius tense, felt his protective instincts flare. But they squeezed his hand, grounding him, reminding him, partnership. Trust. Choice. Hello, Kane, Remy said. Welcome home. The future spread before them, complicated, messy, uncertain. But chosen. Finally, beautifully, painfully chosen. And that made all the difference. Epilogue. 1 year later. The community center smelled like fresh paint and hope. Remy stood in the middle of the main hall, surrounded by volunteers hanging banners and arranging chairs. The space had been a condemned warehouse 6 months ago, dark, dangerous, forgotten. Now it was light and clean, with floor-to-ceiling windows that let the spring sunshine pour in like liquid gold. The Omega Sanctuary. The first of its kind in Pac territory. A place where Omegas could come for medical care, legal advice, job training, and most importantly, safety. No questions asked. No judgment given. No alpha permission required. It was Remy's dream made real, funded by the Thornclaw estate and staffed by volunteers who believed the world could be better than it had been. The sound system's working, someone called from the stage area. Tables are set up in the back. Has anyone seen the catering delivery? Remy smiled, checking items off their tablet. Tonight was the grand opening, a celebration and fundraiser that would officially launch the sanctuary. Half the pack would be there, including the council members who'd once wanted Remy dead. Progress was slow. Painful. Imperfect. But it was real. You're doing that thing again. Dr. Voss appeared at Remy's elbow, carrying a box of medical supplies. She looked younger these days, lighter, like some burden had finally lifted. That thing where you smile at clipboards like they contain the secrets of the universe. Remy gestured at the space, at the people working together, at the physical proof that change was possible. Look at this. A year ago, I was cleaning hospital floors and trying not to exist too loudly. Now I'm changing the world? Dr. Voss set down her box and squeezed Remy's shoulder. You earned this. Every bit of it. Don't let anyone, including yourself, convince you otherwise. I had help. You had allies. There's a difference. You did the hard part, you survived long enough to fight back. She glanced toward the windows. Speaking of allies, your entourage is here. Remy looked up and felt their heart do something complicated in their chest. Darius stood in the doorway, backlit by afternoon sun, looking like every dangerous fantasy wrapped in an expensive suit. But it was the way he looked at Remy that made them breathless. Like they were the only real thing in his entire world, like everything else was just background noise. Beside him stood Kane, darker and more reserved, but with something gentler in his obsidian eyes these days. Something that looked almost like peace. The past year had been complicated. Messy. Full of difficult conversations and careful boundaries and moments where old wounds tried to reopen. But they'd figured it out. The three of them. Not perfectly. Not easily. But honestly. The king arrives, Dr. Voss murmured with barely concealed amusement. Try not to make too much of a scene. We have impressionable volunteers present. I never make scenes, Remy protested. You are a scene, darling. There's a difference. Dr. Voss patted their arm and disappeared toward the medical wing, leaving Remy to face the brothers. Darius reached them first. He always did, moved toward Remy like gravity, like he couldn't help it even if he tried. His hand came up to cup their face, thumb brushing across their cheekbone in a gesture that had become familiar as breathing. How's it going? He asked quietly. Good. Great, actually. Everything's coming together. Remy leaned into his touch, still marveling that they could. That they wanted to. That a year of patient partnership had transformed possession into something that felt like home. Are you nervous about tonight? Terrified. His smile was wry. Half the council still thinks you've bewitched me. The other half thinks I've gone soft. And everyone will be watching to see if the Alpha King can actually follow through on his promises of reform. You have been following through. For a year. With legislation and council votes and actual change. Because you won't let me get away with anything less. His forehead touched theirs. You're my conscience, Omega. My better self. The reason I want to be more than what I was raised to be. That's a lot of pressure to put on one person. Good thing you're extraordinary. He kissed them softly, a promise, not a claim. I'm proud of you. Of this. Of everything you've built. We built it, Remy corrected. Your resources. Your political pressure. Your willingness to stand up to the council when they tried to block the funding. Our project, then. His smile was real. Warm. The smile he saved just for them. Together. Together, Remy agreed. Kane cleared his throat. As touching as this is, some of us are carrying heavy boxes. If you two could postpone the Mutual Admiration Society for 5 minutes? He was holding a stack of donation boxes, looking mildly annoyed but with that hint of fondness in his eyes that he pretended didn't exist. The past year with Kane had been its own journey. He'd come back changed. 6 months away had given him perspective, distance from the throne he'd once coveted. He'd apologized. Really apologized. Not with words so much as with actions, showing up for sanctuary planning meetings, using his business connections to secure funding, standing beside Darius instead of against him. And with Remy? It was complicated. There was still attraction, that hadn't disappeared. Still connection. Still moments where Remy caught him looking at them with something that ached. But there was also respect. Friendship. The acknowledgement that sometimes love meant letting go, and sometimes it meant staying close in a different shape. Where do you want these? Kane asked. Storage room, back left. Remy pointed. Thanks for picking them up. Thank the donors, not me. I'm just the delivery service. But he smiled, small and genuine, before heading toward storage. Darius watched his brother go, something complicated moving across his face. You okay? Remy asked quietly. He's happier. Darius's voice was soft. Did you notice? Not happy, exactly. But, lighter. Like he's finally stopped carrying something that was breaking him. He's found his own path. That's good, isn't it? It is. Darius pulled Remy close, arms around their waist. I spent so long seeing him as a threat, as competition, as everything I had to guard against. It's strange to just see him as my brother. To want good things for him. Growth looks good on you, Remy murmured against his chest. It's uncomfortable as hell. The best things usually are. They stood there for a moment, wrapped in each other, while volunteers worked around them and sunshine painted everything gold. I have something for you, Darius said eventually. He pulled back, reached into his jacket, and withdrew a small velvet box. Remy's heart stopped. Darius. It's not what you think. He opened the box, revealing a delicate bracelet, silver and moonstone, engraved with symbols Remy recognized. It's a medical alert bracelet. Custom made. It monitors your mutation, syncs with Dr. Voss's treatment protocols, and, he hesitated. If you want, it can also connect to my phone. So I know if you're in distress. Not to control or track, just to know you're safe. Remy stared at the bracelet. A year ago, this would have felt like a cage. A leash. A way for him to maintain control. Now it felt like care. Like partnership. Like I love you and I'm terrified of losing you, but I trust you to make your own choices. You can say no, Darius added quickly. If it's too much, if it feels like. Put it on me. He blinked. What? Put it on me. Remy held out their wrist, the one that used to bear his claim. I want it. I want you to know I'm safe. I want the connection. Not because you need to own me, but because we choose to be partners. Darius's hands shook slightly as he fastened the bracelet. When it clicked into place, his thumb traced over their pulse point with devastating tenderness. I love you, he said roughly. So much it still terrifies me sometimes. Good. Remy pulled him down for a kiss that tasted like promise and future and home. Terror keeps you honest. The grand opening was a success beyond Remy's wildest hopes. The sanctuary was packed, hundreds of people from across pack territory, Alpha and Omega alike, filling the space with noise and life and possibility. The catering was perfect. The speeches were moving. And when Remy stood at the podium to thank everyone who'd made this dream possible, they looked out at the crowd and saw change happening in real time. Omegas who'd never had a voice, listening to one of their own speak from a position of power. Alphas who'd never questioned tradition, seeing evidence that a different way was possible. Families learning that hierarchy didn't have to mean cruelty, that strength could exist alongside compassion. This sanctuary exists because people decided change was worth the discomfort, Remy said into the microphone. Because they chose progress over tradition, because they believed Omegas deserved dignity and autonomy and choice. They found Darius in the crowd, found Cain standing beside him. It exists because of partnership. Because people who could have remained enemies chose to become allies. Because love, real love, is about elevation, not possession. The applause was thunderous. Later, when the formal program ended and people mingled over drinks and hors d'oeuvres, Remy found themselves cornered by Elder Blackwood. The old Alpha studied them with sharp eyes. You've caused quite the disruption, young Omega. Remy's spine straightened. If treating Omegas like people is disruptive, then yes, I suppose I have. Don't get defensive. I'm not criticizing. He sipped his drink. A year ago, I voted for your execution. Tonight, I voted to expand sanctuary funding to 3 more cities. You've made me question assumptions I'd held for 70 years. That's uncomfortable. But necessary. Change usually is. Indeed. He nodded slowly. You're good for him, you know. The king. He was becoming everything I feared, powerful but cruel, effective but empty. You've given him something to be better for. That matters more than you probably realize. Before Remy could respond, a commotion near the entrance drew everyone's attention. Serafina Silvercrest stood in the doorway. The room went silent. Guards moved toward weapons. Darius materialized at Remy's side, his dominance flaring protectively. Serafina looked different than she had a year ago. Thinner. Tired. Her designer clothes were gone, replaced by simple jeans and a sweater. Her perfect hair was pulled back in a plain ponytail. She looked human. Real. Broken and trying to rebuild. I know I'm not welcome here, she said quietly, her voice carrying in the sudden silence. She took a shaky breath. I wanted to apologize. Publicly. For everything I did. The poison. The attack. The hatred. Her eyes found Remy's. You almost died because of my jealousy and my mother-in-law's ambition. And I am so sorry. Remy felt Darius tense beside them, felt Cain move closer on their other side. Protection. Support. But the choice was theirs. It always was now. Why are you here? Remy asked. Because exile gave me time to think. To realize I was taught that being Omega meant being less, that love was about power instead of partnership, that I had to scheme and manipulate to matter. Serafina's voice cracked. I was wrong. About all of it. And she gestured at the sanctuary. I wanted to see what I could have built if I'd chosen differently. If I'd been brave instead of bitter. The room waited. Remy looked at Darius. At Cain. At Dr. Voss watching from the medical wing. At Elder Blackwood with his decades of tradition slowly crumbling. At all the Omegas who'd come tonight hoping for proof that forgiveness was possible. I can't forgive you, Remy said honestly. Not yet. Maybe not ever. You tried to kill me. That's not something that just disappears because you apologized. Serafina nodded, tears streaking down her face. I understand. But, Remy held up a hand. If you're serious about changing, about doing better, the sanctuary offers counseling, support groups, resources for people trying to unlearn toxic patterns. You'd have to work with Dr. Voss. You'd have to prove you're genuine. And you'd have to stay away from me, at least for now. Hope flickered across Serafina's face. Really? Everyone deserves a chance to grow, Remy said quietly. Even people who've done terrible things. That's what this place is about, believing people can be better than their worst moments. Serafina's sob was audible. Thank you. Thank you. I'll do the work. I promise. She left quickly, escorted by sanctuary volunteers who would get her registered for services. Darius pulled Remy close. That was generous. That was strategic, Kane corrected. Serafina has influence in exile communities. If she changes, if she advocates for sanctuary principles, it could shift entire populations. It was both, Remy said. And it was human. She's not irredeemable just because she was our enemy. None of us are. Midnight found them in the greenhouse. The three of them, Remy, Darius, and Kane, sitting among the plants like they'd formed their own small pack within the larger one. They'd brought the leftover catering, expensive whiskey, and the comfortable silence that came from a year of learning each other's rhythms. To the sanctuary, Darius said, raising his glass. To change, Kane added. To choosing family instead of accepting fate, Remy finished. They drank, and the whiskey burned warm and perfect. I've been thinking, Kane said eventually, staring into his glass. About taking a position at the sanctuary. Legal counsel for Omega's navigating pack law. I've got the degree, the connections, and, he glanced at Remy. I want to be part of building something that matters. You'd be amazing at it, Remy said immediately. But are you sure? It's a lot of time. A lot of proximity too. They gestured between the three of them. To you both? Kane's smile was sad and honest. I've spent a year learning to be near you without needing to possess you. Without hating my brother for having what I wanted. It's been hard. Sometimes it still is. But I'm better for it. And I'd rather be part of your lives in whatever shape that takes than absent and bitter. It might get complicated, Darius warned. It's already complicated. Kane met his brother's eyes. But it's honest. That's more than we've ever had before. Darius nodded slowly. Then welcome to the team, brother. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, passing the whiskey bottle, watching moonlight paint the glass walls silver. Can I ask you something? Remy said eventually, looking between the brothers. Do you ever regret it? The way things turned out? Darius, you could have kept absolute power. Kane, you could have taken the throne. Both of you gave up what you thought you wanted. I didn't give up anything worth keeping, Darius said immediately. The power I had before was empty. It came from fear and tradition and violence. What I have now, he looked at Remy. A partner who challenges me. A purpose beyond conquest. A brother I don't have to fight. That's better than any throne. I thought I wanted the crown, Kane admitted. Spent my whole life believing I'd been cheated of what should have been mine. But the truth is, I didn't want to rule. I wanted to be seen. To matter. To be chosen instead of overlooked. He smiled slightly. Turns out I can have that without destroying my brother. Who knew? Character growth, Remy said. It's a hell of a drug. They laughed, all three of them, and the sound echoed through the greenhouse like music. I'm glad you didn't die, Kane said suddenly, looking at Remy with unusual directness. When you collapsed after the trial, when you were unconscious for 3 days, I realized I'd been so focused on wanting you that I'd never actually told you I valued you. As a person. As a force of nature. As the Omega who changed everything without trying to. I tried a little bit, Remy said. You tried a lot, Darius corrected. You fought and bled and nearly died and rebuilt yourself and the entire pack structure. Don't minimize that. Fine. I'm magnificent. Remy grinned. Happy now? Ecstatic, both brothers said in unison, then looked at each other in surprise. The moment broke into laughter again, easier this time, warmer. They stayed in the greenhouse until dawn started painting the sky pink and gold. Talking about plans for the sanctuary, about upcoming council votes, about Cain's potential position, about Darius's continued reforms. About the future they were building together, complicated and messy and absolutely chosen. When they finally stood to leave, Darius caught Remy's hand. Come home with me? Always, Remy said. Cain headed toward his own apartment with a wave and a small smile that looked almost like contentment. And Remy walked through the dawnlit city with the Alpha King's hand in theirs, their medical bracelet glowing softly on their wrist, their mutation quiet and controlled, their heart full of something that felt impossibly like happiness. They'd survived. More than survived, they transformed survival into purpose, pain into power, possession into partnership. A year ago, they'd been nobody. Invisible. Broken. Now they were Remy, chief medical advisor, sanctuary founder, Omega revolutionary, partner to a king learning to love without owning. Still complicated. Still imperfect. Still healing from wounds that would probably never fully close. But chosen. Finally, beautifully, courageously chosen. And that made all the difference. The end. Thank you for listening to this story. Like, share and subscribe for more.